All right, my brother.
Okay, so we are coming up. All right, so we're live now.
All right, family. Hotep, peace, greetings. Of course, welcome to another session with Melaneyes Media. This is our Tuesday morning Black conversation. My name is Baba Aundar. I'm the co-founder of Melaneyes Media. And as always, we're very excited to have this opportunity to come here and just share and just have a conversation about things that are important to us. So, you know, we don't beat around the bush. We like to jump right into things. But before we do that, of course, I want my brother to introduce himself and then guide us through this evening, or this morning, rather.
Indeed.
Time.
No, understandable. Peace, Baba Aundar. Peace and greetings, family. For those of you who are joining us now and in the future, we appreciate your time for these Tuesday conversations, Melanized Black conversations. Always would encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're doing this on a regular basis. We have quite a bit of information and quite a bit of content on our YouTube channel, so we would encourage you to subscribe. And with that being said, let's jump into it, Baba.
All right, my brother. Let's pull up our content for this morning. And hopefully we all can see that, family. Of course, on these Tuesday mornings, we like to try to pull out something. Sometimes it's just some ideas, some things that we have been talking about and sharing. And sometimes it's things that we have read and come across. This morning, what we wanted to do was really kind of look at something that I think is very important, that was shared with us by Dr. Carter G. Woodson in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro. There's a chapter in the book that says the need for service rather than leadership. And we wanted to just share this, what he said, a little piece in that chapter, and then just have a discussion, just have a conversation. So I'm going to read it here, my brother. It says, if the Negro could abandon the idea of leadership and instead stimulate a large number of the race to take up definite tasks and sacrifice their time and energy in doing these things efficiently, the race might accomplish something. The race needs workers, not leaders. Such workers will solve the problems which race leaders talk about and raise money to enable them to talk more and more about. When you hear a man talking, then always inquire as to what is he doing and what he has done for humanity. You know, and I think it's just a powerful statement writing in the book. But like to just get your take on overall, my brother. What comes to mind when you see that or we read that?
Well, you know, one of the things that jumps out at me is the race needs workers, not leaders. And I think that that's very key and important. I remember having a conversation with somebody at one point, and what was really being said is that we're past needing Black leaders. And I do think that there's some validity to that. And I think that we do need hands in the pot. I think we need feet on the ground and people that are pushing forward to actually do things and strive to accomplish things. And I don't think that we necessarily need leaders. However, we're always going to need leadership. And I think that that can be from elders. I think that can be from people that are experienced. I think that can be from our youth sometimes. But I guess what I'm saying is that I don't necessarily think we have to have one individual that's in charge. I honestly think that that's somewhat dangerous, and I think that's what the 60s really revealed to us. Is that when you have a figurehead, it can be beneficial to some degree, but it can be damaging in other regards. And so I think at the end of the day, somebody like Carter G. Woodson, who has a great amount of respect from me, a great amount of like proof in his work and a reputation for doing work, I definitely can respect this coming from the brother. And I really, I just think about that sentence right there when I see this paragraph. What about yourself?
No, likewise, and I think you make some excellent points, brother. because I think he was looking at, at his time and looking at our history and seeing that pretty much we were looking for leaders in the community, or people were striving to be leaders in the communities, in our community, and still to this very day. But the idea of defining what does a leader do, what is leadership about? And leadership, to me, it says leadership is about service. I mean, if you really want to be a leader, then you have to be in service to your people. And I think another thing I think he was really highlighting is that many times we think of the leaders as the person that is the orator, the person that speaks. And of course, we need people who can speak, and we need people who can teach and write and so forth. But that doesn't, we don't need necessarily everyone trying to speak and talk and speak, I mean, for the race. But the idea is that we need people who also would take the message, take the information, and build, the programs needed to uplift our community. So we got to be clear that leadership is not necessarily based upon our oratorial skills, our ability to speak, because I think what you highlighted in your comment, brother, and I think it's very important that we recognize in the 60s, we had some great orators, we had some great speakers, and some great leaders, and I definitely think of Brother Malcolm and Dr. King as great leaders, because I see their work, but they was great orators also. But the problem sometimes we have is that we get so memorized by the leadership because of their ability to speak. We lose focus on the fact that, one, that we can all be leaders, in regard that we can all be in service. So I think Dr. Carter G. Woodson was really trying to open us up to something that we really gonna have to take a closer look at, as if we talk about leadership, are we talking about people who are in service to our community? And it's not necessarily based upon what we're saying, but more so on what we're doing.
One thing when you were speaking, it made me think about the message and the messenger. And a lot of times when you have a figurehead or a leader, and it reminds me so much of what Ella Baker taught and spoke about. A lot of times you get caught up in the dynamism and the characteristics and the charisma of a well-spoken, nice-looking individual. You get caught up in their midst, so to speak, and sometimes the message is not as important. It becomes to be about the messenger. And I think ultimately we have to be in tune with the message, because that's really the core. That's really what the focus should be. What is the message? I think another thing that stands out, it says, abandon the idea of leadership and instead stimulate a larger number of the race to take up definite tasks and sacrifice their time and energy in doing these things efficiently. I think that really says a lot as well, because when you do something, it reminds me in the film, a message to the people, when you say, if you get in the habit of working with Black people and being an organization, then you get good at working with one another. And I definitely think that that's true. And I think the more that we do in practice, the more efficient and the better we get, the more that we hone our skills, and the sharper that we get and the more effective we get. And then in time, we start to really accomplish more. And I also think the sacrifice their time and energy. You can't teach that. I mean, that just really have to be something that a person is willing to do. And if you can find people like that are willing to sacrifice their time and energy, then you have a dedicated soldier, and you have people that's really going to help make a change. And I think if anything, we should be always keeping our eye out for people that are willing to devote their time and their energy, because if we find those types of people, there's no stopping us, and once again, you don't need everybody. You don't need every single person to be a part of a particular movement in order for that movement to be effective. You don't have to get caught up in a large amount of numbers. It's really about the efficiency and the dedication of the people that are willing to devote time and energy. And so I think that that's really important, and I really admire what he's saying here.
And what you just said, brother, just highlighted to me, definite task, I think that's something that we really have to look at when we talk about service and leadership, because, it just made me think about when you look at a group like the Black Panthers, when we look at history, we remember, of course, Huey P. Newton, of course, Brother Fred Hampton, and some of those who were the speakers. But when you think about the programs of the Black Panthers, when you think about the breakfast program and feeding the children, somebody had to be there preparing the food, first going out, getting the food, bringing it in, preparing the food, and serving the children. When you talk about the sickle cell anemia program, somebody had to be in the medical field who was bringing their skills to the community and providing that service and focusing on that task. Somebody had to put the newspaper together in order to get the word out. So you had to have writers and you had to have printers. So I'm saying you had to have people who were involved in the task. And again, I think the emphasis is that we have to know that in this struggle, we all can do something, because we all can engage in a task that's going to uplift the race. So whatever it is, we talk about the things we need as a people. We need food, quality food. So in order to have quality food, we need some farmers, somebody out there cultivating the land, planting the seed, harvesting, and bringing it to the community. We need clothes. So we need people who can take us through that process of manufacturing clothes. Basically saying that I think every task is important. And when we talk about, therefore, focusing on the task that's going to elevate the race, it's not necessarily going to be that person or those people necessarily who are in the limelight in the sense of speaking, but it's going to be those people who are doing those things to enable those people, of course, to be able to speak, but those people in the backdrop who are doing those things to build up the community and truly be in service to the race.
Indeed. It made me think about, we think about sports, and I'm not a huge fan of football. I've watched football before, but one thing I understand about football is that there's a lot of people involved. And we see the head coach, we see the quarterback, we see individuals like that, but sometimes we don't look at the offensive coordinator. We don't look at the defensive coach. We don't look at the strategists that are behind the scenes, the GM, even the recruiters. And what I'm saying is that I think what you spoke of is very key and significant, because there's a role that each one of us can play. And we have to find our strengths and our talents. And I think that kind of comes back to this point here where it says, such workers will solve the problems which race leaders talk about and raise money to enable them to talk more and more about. And so I get what he's saying, but I do think there's a couple of keys in there. You can't even solve certain problems until you start working with that problem.
Yes.
It's some things you can't solve through philosophy, through thinking about, through mentally working and toiling. You have to physically get in the trenches and have your hands in the mix a lot of times to solve some of the issues and problems that will arise. And so I think that's necessary, because some things won't ever be fixed unless we have people with their hands in it, getting their hands dirty, working with it.
Yeah.
Another thing that he says here, that the workers actually raise the money that enable the leaders or the figureheads to speak more.
Yeah.
That's a real jewel right there, because that is really important to understand. And I think that if we understand that there's not necessarily a need for a leader per se or a figurehead, then those funds and that money that's raised can go to the organization and go to expand the efforts to solve more problems and do more and recruit more people. So I think that it's a lot of science in what he says there. I think it's a lot of understanding in there.
No, that's very powerful, brother, because I agree. I think, and so just in that, idea, and it made me think of this, in organizations, in groups, you have a spokesperson, and that's not necessarily always the leader. Of course, when you look at the United States government, you have a spokesperson. Of course, they put the president out as the sometimes the spokesperson, but they have a national spokesperson. But the idea is that we see that person sometimes as the leader, but do we always reflect on all the people that are involved in carrying out the task to even give that person that position, or give them the information, or give them the resources? So when you talked about just the workers and the people who are serving the community and how they're bringing in the resources, which enables then the leaders or the spokesperson to go out there and speak about issues. And the other thing is that it's then becomes numbers, because if you have one person who is speaking for the group, then you may have thousands, if not millions of people working to build the organization, working to build the community. So I think it's important that we start to go back and recognize the fact that we all then have a role to play as workers, and even the orators is a worker for the group. And I think then it becomes challenging for us as a race, because sometimes I think we have been miseducated, as Dr. Carter G. Woodson may speak of miseducation. We've been miseducated to think that everything has to be centered around the leader or the orator or the speaker, which is not the case for us as a people, because we cannot advance just with one person standing up and talking about issues. We need people who are working to solve those problems and look for resolutions and solutions for things that we have need of in our community. So I think, brother, and I ask you this, when you, because when he says down, when you hear a man talking, then always inquire as to what is he doing or what he has done for humanity. You know, when you think about that, and you think about people out of our history, who are maybe some of the people that you will acknowledge and see that, okay, when I hear even that person talking, I know what they have done for humanity. So it's not just words they have spoken, or it's not just they're talking about something, an idea or philosophy, but they're actually engaged in doing something.
Indeed. You know, someone that came to mind this morning was Marcus Garvey. I mean, you could see the results of his labor. He built something, and he was striving to build more had not there been hands in play to try to dismantle what he was striving towards. He had a real mission that was moving. I can't have this conversation without thinking about Elijah Muhammad. Once again, we often speak about he doesn't necessarily get credit. But when you talk about a group of people owning things, owning land, owning businesses, owning shipping, boats, and providing the necessary things for a community, I mean, he didn't say a whole lot. That's the thing about it too. Man, a few words. Elijah Muhammad is vocally wrote many books though. Definitely express his words in the written form, but always has something to show for what he said. You can look about the people that he taught, educated. So two people that come to mind just off the top. How about yourself?
Well, you took two people, because I was definitely thinking of first the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, as truly, as we see as a race leader, but who truly was engaged in the work and building something for the race and for, you know, our human family. But also, and I definitely have to acknowledge Honorable Elijah Muhammad, for he was truly an example of a person who you can say, look at what he has done, you know. And it made me think about even in that organization structure, he had Brother Malcolm as a national spokesperson. So it was a role that was assigned to Brother Malcolm, and he carried out his role as other people did their responsibility. But I think another person that kind of, and I don't think she gets a lot of credit, and this is, of course, the great Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. I think what she was able to do, first of all, she was engaged in the work of building a school, Bethune-Cookman College. but she also was a great orator and a speaker in helping to organize Black women. And when you look at some of her writings, some of the things that she said, she was truly about not only being able to share the ideas, but in the backdrop, being able to take those ideas and to bring people together in order to manifest something that ultimately spoke to what she did for humanity. So I think, and I mean, in all honesty, but look at Ida B. Wells, you know, truly using her talent, her skills as a writer to defend Black men. But again, she was seen as a leader of the race, and she was and is a leader of the race. But the idea is that these people were engaged in something that was not just, and I'll make this difference, is that sometimes we are in this environment, we're getting an education, and we think to be able to speak about something is the end, the beginning and the end of it. But can we take what we are learning and then apply, participate in that, applied, so then we can see, actually, is it real? Can we build something? Can we create something? Can we manufacture something that's going to, of course, benefit the race and humanity? So when I think of, and I think, you know, when we talk about some of the people that we have talked about in our other presentations, I really see them as workers who we see as, of course, leaders, but we see them as great leaders based upon the work that they accomplished, all the work they did.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. You know, it makes me think about the most, I was talking about in reference to the military, the best generals were once soldiers. And the soldiers tend to respect the general who was in the field before.
That's right.
And so I think that it's important to understand that. So when you just said, a lot of times individuals that are at a heightened level is because they've been in the field before. And I think that if we do have leadership, once again, not necessary that it has to be a single individual. Mm-hmm. However, people that are in positions of leadership should have been or have some experience as a worker to some degree, so that they understand what the other individuals who play different roles are in tune with and have to deal and struggle with.
Excellent.
Yeah.
No, I agree, brother. So I really think, you know, overall, to me, Dr. Carter G. Woodson was really trying to get us to really look at our condition as a people and to make clear for us that we all, you know, we need, as you said at the very opening, brother, we do need leadership. And we need leaders. And we can all be leaders in the sense that if we are workers in service to the race. So I think it's almost really about giving us clarity to see that on one hand, we need people who are out there talking and sharing information, but we all don't necessarily need to try to take that role and be that person in the so-called limelight. But we need to have people who are also engaged in the task. Every task, and we need as a people, we need everything, but people who are engaged in the work and service to our race. And if we can distinguish the two, then we can appreciate the two.
You know, one thing, anytime we have these conversations, I think about my nation, think about brothers and sisters that I have interacted with on a personal level. One of the greatest pieces of wisdom that I think I received is from an older brother of mine, and he said, the duty of the strong is to serve the weak. And I think, to summarize all of this, ultimately, one of the greatest things you can do is to serve.
Yes.
As opposed to striving to be served, but is to serve others, is one of the most sacrificial, loving, bravest things that I think that a person can do, because you put yourself in a position where a person could kind of reject you to some degree. And that's a position of strength, being vulnerable, making sure that you are willing to give to others. Because if we're talking about what we can do for humanity, the greatest amongst us serve.
That's right.
And so we should look at that as an elevated position to be in service. We shouldn't look at it at a low level. That's something that the greatest amongst us have done. And I always think about, once again, I'm not a religious man in any sense of the word. However, if you look at the stories of Jesus in the Bible and they speak about how he served the disciples and how he washed their feet, that shows you something about him. And so when you talk about Dr. King, I think about an individual who was truly in service. I mean, he really served the people. And I think that the strongest amongst us have to remain in a position to serve and to help and to assist those who may be in need.
Yeah. As you were just saying that, brother, I quickly wanted, because I remember something Dr. King has said, and quoting saying, not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great, because greatness is determined by service. And I think that's, kind of sums it up for me, brother, is that, family, we all are great. Have no mistake. We all are great. We have the potential to do great things, but it really comes out when we are in service to our family and our community, our race, and to humanity. So I think if we can take these words from Dr. Carter G. Woodson, take some of the words of some of our great ancestors, we can definitely see in their lives, it was about service to the race. And that's why we raised them up. And ultimately, that's how we, as Dr. King would say, recognize for our greatness when we're in service to our race.
Indeed, and, made me think about the work that we do. We strive to be a service to people. We strive to provide something of value. We strive to provide a perspective more than anything. I was thinking about it this morning. We do provide knowledge. We provide understanding. I think we also strive to provide a perspective, because one of the things about an information age, when you have so much information that's thrown at you, so many things are readily available at an individual's fingertips. Sometimes the problem then becomes how to put these things in perspective or in an order where it makes sense. And so as older men, I know as people that are younger than myself, I know people that are younger than you, who may not have some of the life experiences or just may not have had some of the interactions that we've had. We have to look at ourselves as being valuable in a way that we can provide perspective. And so that's one thing, as a friend, one thing I always respected and honored about you. I always appreciated your perspective. And I think that's something that we strive to provide people.
Yeah. Because, just in saying that, brother, I appreciate that, because I think that's what has definitely helped us grow, personally, and as a business and being in service to our community. Because I really think about the project, specifically about the project Walk on the River. We were able to actually, I think, be a more service to the community and creating the documentary film, because the information was already there. The people already had the knowledge. We were just able to sit down and have dialogue with these elders, leaders, scholars, activists, people within the community, everyday brothers and sisters who shared the information with us. But I think it was beautiful, the fact that we sat down, taking, especially your skill, brother, with the background that you have in videography, and being able to see that if we can record this information and do our research, then we can provide a needed product for our community. And that product is something that restores memory. The film, to me, documentary, the film that we produce, restores the memory of the community, and it helps then transfer that memory to next generations. So the idea is that by able to just seeing how we can serve our community, recognizing that if we could just take the information, put it in a product, a package that now we can share with a larger community, and therefore share it with, like I say, the future. Truly, it's a way of serving our community. And it's interesting because, you know what, in the film, we never jumped in front of the camera. We never sat down and interviewed. The idea is that we wanted to hear the words of those who pretty much have been, had a strong position here in the San Antonio community and have been leaders and definitely have been of service to the community. And it was beautiful. And I think it also, so a part of that I'm saying is that I think being of service to the community also sometimes meaning that you just taking your skills, utilizing them, and just being humble and understanding that, look, kid, you don't have to say much because in your work you speak.
That's key. And I think that's a good way to close it out, brother. I think this is a really good conversation. Makes me want to go back and look more at the book, Miseducation of the Negro. We appreciate and honor Dr. Carter G. Woodson for everything he has given us and left us with.
No doubt. No, it's been great, brother. And more and more, I think just enjoying the time on these Tuesday mornings to have these Black conversations, have this kind of dialogue. Hopefully, as brothers and sisters come across this recording, of course, it engages more and more people into reflecting on what it means to be a leader and in service to our race.
Indeed. And so with that being said, family, we appreciate your time. We thank those of you who were able to join us on YouTube. We appreciate your support. Appreciate you coming and sticking with us. We value your time and we hope to see you all in the very near future. Peace and greetings and peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings, family. Hotel.
Here, brother, let me